April Wilson's footsteps echoed quickly down the hospital corridor. She had felt uneasy ever since her father had called her earlier. "Miss Wilson, you look lovely today," an elderly patient said, giving her a kind smile as she passed by the nurse's station. April smiled back, her face soft and warm. She tucked her long brown hair behind her ear and replied, "Take care." Her words and demeanor showed the calm confidence of a nurse with 7 years of experience. She was small, about 5 feet 3 inches, and her simple scrubs, along with her subtle makeup, made her look approachable and professional to her patients. But today, there was something different about her. There was a shadow behind her usual calm. "Dad," she whispered to herself. In the break room, April sat down with a heavy sigh, staring at her phone. Her father's message glared back at her, "We're having a family meeting tomorrow. Catherine will be there too." Hearing her sister's name for the first time in 3 years made her heart tighten. From the hospital windows, she could see the autumn leaves turning red and gold on the trees outside. It reminded her of 3 years ago, when the season had felt so different. Catherine, her sister, was everything she wasn't: tall, blonde, and always dressed in the most expensive clothes. She was the kind of person who loved attention, the kind of person who made sure everyone knew she was living the high life. A real estate agent, Catherine surrounded herself with rich, powerful people, always posting about her extravagant lifestyle on social media. And then there was Michael. Just hearing his name still hurt. He had been April's husband, and thinking about him sent a sharp pain through her chest. He was a cardiologist, tall and slim, with sharp features. He always wore expensive suits and had an air of confidence that made him popular with everyone at the hospital. But deep down, he was controlling and manipulative. Their father, Joseph, was a kind but strong man, a doctor, with graying hair and a gentle smile. He had spent years saving lives as a heart surgeon. Now, he should have been enjoying his quiet retirement, but instead, he was tangled up in all of this. April felt a knot in her stomach thinking about the family meeting. What could it be about? Since their mother's death 3 years ago, everything had changed. Her mother had been loving and devoted. Even though she struggled with rheumatoid arthritis, she had kept caring for her family right up until the end. But now, why was Catherine, who had stopped helping their mother and had stolen April's husband, coming back into the picture? "April, could you help with blood draws on the 4th floor?" A colleague's voice pulled her back to the present. April stood up quietly, pushing her worries aside for the moment. She was known for her seriousness, her sincerity, and her compassion, qualities she had inherited from her mother. As she moved to help, the evening sky outside seemed to warn her about tomorrow. She thought back to when she first met Michael, in the hospital cafeteria 5 years ago. "Is this seat taken?" he had asked, flashing a smile at her while wearing his white coat. It had been a busy lunch hour, and the room was full of people. That day had marked the start of their relationship. Michael had been a rising star in the cardiology department, well known at the hospital. What began as small conversations during breaks turned into more. Over time, their connection grew stronger, and they began dating seriously. "How about dinner?" he had asked one evening, and April felt nervous but excited at the idea of going to an elegant Italian restaurant. Michael had been a perfect gentleman, and his kindness slowly made her feel more comfortable. On weekends, they would stroll along the Charles River or visit the Boston Museum of Art. Their relationship seemed perfect, and everyone around them envied their happiness. "I've been waiting for someone as sincere as you," he had said, proposing to her at a cozy restaurant near Harvard Square. Outside, the autumn leaves danced in the wind as tears fell from April's eyes when he placed the ring on her finger. The wedding was held in a church, with both families there. April stood in her white dress, and her mother's tearful smile made the day even more special. Catherine had been her maid of honor, smiling softly. Looking back now, April realized that Catherine's smile had been more calculating than she had thought. The word, inheritance, made April's brow furrow, a feeling of unease creeping up her spine. "Yes, we've been thinking about the future," Michael said, trying to keep the conversation going. Their father stood up quietly, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Perfect timing," he said, "I have something important to discuss." His voice was usually calm, but there was a strength in it now that caught April off guard. The evening light shining on his graying hair added a sense of dignity to his presence. The couple's expressions quickly shifted. Catherine's smug smile froze, and Michael, usually so sure of himself, looked uneasy. They exchanged a glance without meaning to. something uncomfortable hanging in the air. First, let's talk about my condition, their father continued, his words instantly changing the mood of the room. I have terminal pancreatic cancer, he said, the words hung heavy in the air, and the room fell silent. 3 months to live, he added. Tears welled up in April's eyes, but she had already known this news. She had been told earlier, and yet it still felt like a punch to the gut. Catherine and Michael's faces shifted rapidly, shock, agitation, and calculation flickered across their features. Michael, the doctor, immediately understood the severity of what their father was saying. Father, we'll take care of you, Catherine quickly offered, trying to smooth things over. Though her voice wavered, her perfect makeup started to look less perfect. Yes, I can provide the best treatment, Michael said, his words filled with a quiet confidence, trying to assert himself as the professional in the room. But their father raised his hands slowly, cutting off their words. He didn't seem angry, just steady. That won't be necessary, he said. He walked calmly to his study and opened a drawer. He pulled out a thick envelope with a notary's seal on it. I want you to see this. The sound of the envelope opening seemed louder than it should have been. This is, Catherine's voice cracked, her composure starting to crumble. These are records of your mother's care expenses, their father began, his tone even and controlled. Catherine, these are records of care facility payments you embezzled. Michael, you falsified medical certificates. He laid the evidence out one by one on the table: security camera footage, unpaid notices from the care facility, copies of their mother's diary, cold text messages from Catherine, and posts from her social media. That's not all, their father said, turning the computer screen toward them. I also have records from the day mother passed away. He pulled up security camera footage from the hospital, showing exactly where Catherine and Michael were when their mother was in critical condition. The time stamps were clear. The color drained from Catherine's face. Cold sweat appeared on Michael's forehead. You left mother to die. Their father's voice was low but filled with emotion. And then you lived luxuriously with the money. Outside the window, snowflakes began to fall more heavily, and the flames from the fireplace flickered. Their father continued, each piece of evidence revealing another layer of betrayal. Let's start with the expense records first. He spread out a stack of bills from Mount Auburn Care Facility, 3 years' worth, organized chronologically. Catherine, you received $5,000 monthly for mother's care expenses, their father said calmly, but his eyes were sharp. But no payments were actually made. These are unpaid notices from the care facility. One by one, bills and letters demanding payment appeared on the table, showing that their mother never got the care she needed. This must be some mistake, Catherine stammered, her makeup beginning to melt as tears filled her eyes. It's no mistake, their father replied, opening the computer screen again. These are your bank account records. The screen showed Catherine's spending habits, luxury brand purchases, overseas vacations, car loans, everything that had nothing to do with their mother's care. Their father turned his gaze to Michael. Michael, you were complicit in this, he said simply. Next came hospital records, false medical certificates signed by Michael, documents that downplayed their mother's condition and care needs. As a doctor, Michael should have known better, and his face twisted with shame. His professional pride collided with the reality of his actions. And this is the decisive evidence, their father said, pulling out a small, worn notebook. It was their mother's diary. He began reading aloud the last entries written in her handwriting. Today, I tried contacting Catherine again, but she refused. I can't burden April anymore. The words were a gut punch to April. Tears streamed down her face as her mother's pain was laid bare. I consulted Michael, but he wouldn't listen. The pain in my heart hurts more than my physical pain. Catherine's mascara ran down her face as she sobbed quietly. There's more, their father said. He showed security footage from the hospital on the day their mother was critically ill. The timestamp showed Catherine and Michael eating at a luxury restaurant. Do you remember what happened that day? Their father asked, his voice tight with emotion. Mother waited for you both until the end. April's memory of that day flashed before her, her mother's weak breaths, her final wish unspoken. But we had work. Catherine tried to defend herself, but her words were weak, meaningless. Work? Their father opened the social media records next. Look at this post. The screen displayed Catherine's post from that night, having the best night ever. Michael's face went pale as he realized there was no excuse left. Finally, their father pulled out another envelope, his will. The contents made Catherine and Michael's expressions freeze. All assets will be inherited by April, their father said quietly, his voice full of finality. The air in the room thickened. I've set conditions for you both, he continued, an apology at mother's grave, full repayment of the embezzled care expenses. He paused for a moment, then added, the funds I had prepared for my treatment will all be donated. What? Catherine stood up in shock, dropping her designer handbag to the floor. That's illegal, we have inheritance rights. You think you have such rights? Their father asked sharply. Rights for those who left mother to die. Michael, unable to hide his panic, started to protest. We have lawyers, legally. Their father responded coldly. All evidence is already stored in multiple locations with lawyers and prosecutors. The room was still, cold, and tense. The finality of their father's words left no room for escape. You have two choices, he said, accept the conditions, or. The rest of the sentence didn't need to be spoken. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering everything in a soft, silent blanket. The warmth of the family once shared now felt distant, like a memory too far gone. 1 year later, April had moved into her father's house and began a new chapter in her life. The roses in the garden started to bloom, and her mother's favorite flowers once again filled the air with their fragrance. At Mount Auburn Hospital, April's reputation had grown. With 7 years of dedication, she was promoted to head nurse, trusted by her staff and cherished by patients. Your care helped me so much, Miss Wilson, patients would say, and April would always think of her mother. It was her mother's love that had shaped her into the woman she was. The last 3 months with her father were irreplaceable. Caring for him with love and tenderness, April found a deep sense of peace. One afternoon, her father opened an old photo album, his voice gentle as he said, Look, April, here are the memories we made. They looked at family pictures together, vacations, holidays, and special moments. You are our pride, mine and your mother's, her father had said. In the quiet spring morning light, her father passed away peacefully, a photo of her mother in his hand. Meanwhile, Catherine and Michael's lives had crumbled. Their luxury apartment was foreclosed, and the lavish lifestyle they once lived was no more. Michael's reputation as a doctor disappeared, and he was forced to take a job at a small clinic. Catherine's social media posts vanished, her real estate business fell apart, and her once popular lifestyle faded away. Their marriage also fell apart, as blame was thrown back and forth. Eventually, they lived separately. The last time April saw them was at their mother's grave. They came to apologize, humbled and broken. April stood quietly, watching them. She felt no anger or hatred anymore, only the weight of life's lessons and the power of karma. Now, in the garden, the roses bloomed once more, and April sat on her father's favorite bench, the sun warm on her face. She looked up at the sky, her mother's keepsake ring gleaming on her hand. In the act of planting flowers, she felt her mother's presence in everything, the love, the care, the legacy. Dad, Mom, I'm happy, April whispered softly to the wind. Thanks to both of you, I can live strong. Please keep watching over me. Birds chirped in the distance, and the flowers swayed gently in the breeze. The past was no longer a burden, it had become the strength that carried her forward. The music of Bohemian Rhapsody played softly from inside the house, and April smiled, feeling the warmth of her mother's love.